Okay. Howdy and good morning. This is Chuck Deadmeat, and I'm here in California. It's cold. It's about 32 degrees. There's condensation everywhere, but it's not freezing. The airplane is covered in some water. We'll show you that. We flew the 210 here last night because of massive headwinds up to 53 knots. We had to stop for an extra fuel stop, and because of that we got here late. And because we got here late, the FBO was closing. We couldn't really do anything we had planned to do, which is including getting dinner. So we're going to show you around, just a quick look around the area if I can figure out how to switch the camera around. There we go. There's a jet getting ready to take off over there. I'm not sure if it's going to let me zoom in, but we'll see him in a minute. So hangar number 2 is where we're parked. There's an apartment upstairs behind the hangar that the owner let us stay in last night and hopefully this week. So here's 732 Echo Lima, the 210 that we flew out here with. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. It's got oil on it from the flight. And as you can see, she's covered. Now, interesting, I'll tell you a quick story, is yesterday when we were flying out of cross-country estates into Georgetown, we actually got icing on the windshield. And we weren't getting enough hot air because they didn't know how to defrost the windshield, that we actually had a layer of ice when we landed at Georgetown. We were able to see all the lighting and everything and land successfully. Not really a challenge. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, we almost crashed and died because of icing, severe icing. That could be, the title of this, right? Severe icing almost brings us down. Maybe I'll make that the YouTube channel. Anyway, as you can see, she's covered with moisture. And I'll also post a video I took from New Mexico. We stopped, our first fuel stop was New Mexico. We didn't quite have the fuel to make it, so we stopped in New Mexico for one refueling, and then it was clear we weren't going to make it. We were going to run out, we were going to have maybe 15 minutes of fuel left when we got here, so we decided to stop again in an interesting place, Josephine Cockrell Regional Airport or something. Anyway, so here's a 210. So there's some interesting stuff around. We'll just take a quick look. This is a highly secured airport, so it's possible I start walking around and some car shows up to see what I'm doing. But these are split door hangars. They fold up, folding doors. They fold up, and I think the wing is clear of the hangar when they open it. I wanted to get down here before they open to make sure. We flew at night, so there's kind of this 2-strike or 3-strike rule. Definitely a 3-strike rule, that if there's a 3-strike rule, you don't fly. And the first strike is night. You're flying at night. The second strike is that you're flying in mountains. The third strike would be that you're flying IFR, or in instrument conditions, which we weren't. But unfamiliar, some people say an unfamiliar area could be the third strike. And so there's 2 runways here. Interestingly, this left runway starts way down there, and you can't land on it till right about here. It's called a displaced threshold, and for some reason, like if you land this way, you're allowed to roll onto the unusable asphalt, but you can't land on the asphalt, as if the asphalt won't take the weight. But I think the reason is there's a glide path to get to the runway, and there's homes down there, and I think that by displacing the threshold, they gave a higher buffer to those homes, probably because they were complaining of noise. So don't buy a home at the end of a runway and then complain about the noise. You can see that's probably an old tower from back in the day when this airport was first built. There's a new tower over there. Some palm trees. I don't know if that jet was just taxiing somewhere. He didn't land. I've been out here long enough. So the winds were really ferocious. We came up to mountains in in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and the winds were hitting the mountains and going up, and so then they roll over, and so as we got into the rolling over, the 210, we had it on autopilot, started to climb, and of course climbing reduces the speed, and we were already going really slow because of the headwinds. And then when we got over the mountain peaks, of course, then we got this severe updraft, so now we're pitching down, trying to maintain an altitude and picking up some speed, but also against higher velocity winds. That's, I think, when we hit about like 53 miles an hour. Oh, wait, no, it's 53 knots, so that's like 65 miles an hour. So it's some pretty big winds. And then we got at Las Cruces. Fortunately, the runway was directly lined up with the wind, and we landed at Las Cruces, New Mexico. And the winds on the surface, when we were trying to take off, were 43. I wrote it down. I've got the speeds, but the winds were like 45 miles an hour on the ground. And so we had to taxi the 210 over to get some fuel. We had it pointed directly in the wind while she was parked, but we had to turn her sideways to the pumps while we filled the tanks. The ladder kept getting blown over. One person was having to hold the ladder while the other got up on it. And once they got on it, it was fine. We'll go take a look at this. I keep hearing that jet, but I think he's just parked over there. And then that looks like the new tower. And like I said, there may be somebody up there watching me walk around and calling security, and so we may have a security card show up here soon. But I think as long as I stay what's called the ramp, where I am right now is a ramp area, it's like you can buy these hangars or rent them, and this is your space, so they expect kind of people to be out in this area, just not over on the taxiways or the runways. So that dark asphalt is where the airport property, where the ground controller manages. So like if I start my engines and we taxi around, we can do whatever we want out here, but as soon as we go down this line and get to that Gulf taxiway, we have to be talking to ground control. I hear him revving his engine up. Might be getting ready for. He may have brought it out of a hangar, and he took it over there, and he's waiting for passengers. Secure gate. One of the things we were told is if we leave, we can't get back in, and so we didn't want to leave the airport. So we went over to Atlantic Aviation last night. Their 10 building, and they were closing. And most, I guess this airport just has nothing going on at night. Most what's called fixed base operators, or FBOs, have somebody that sits there all night long. So if a plane comes in, they come out and they use the wands to direct you where to park. They help you tie down. They refuel you. And then when you go inside, there's pilot lounge. There's a place to sit. In fact, most of the bigger ones like this would have places for you to sleep. So imagine that you're a corporate pilot like this guy. You're flying some business people in here for a meeting, and then they're leaving later, hours later. So they'll have a place for you to sleep, to take a shower, to watch TV, massage chairs usually. There he goes. Now it's taxiing out. So they'll have like massage chairs, and then they'll even have free cars, what's called a courtesy car, for you to borrow, so you can go get lunch and come back. The courtesy cars usually have a 1 to 3 hour time limit. They're not rentals. You're just borrowing them to go get a lunch. So as a corporate pilot coming in here, landing, you're taken care of while your passengers are off doing business, and then when they come back, you're ready to go. So it looks like they brought this in on a flatbed, as you can see, all chopped up. I assume for training. That's kind of interesting how they chopped it up to get it ready to go on the trailer, and then realized they chopped more than they needed, maybe. So, and interesting how they chopped all the windows out. So they probably resold those windows. And so they chopped them out so they could disassemble them cleanly and then sell them. Harmony, I guess it's Harmony Airlines or Harmony something. And then here is a little simulator of a airplane, little fuselage, wing, engine. That's kind of cute. There's fuel over there. We can I don't see a purchase. Oh, there might be a purchase thing. I'll go look, because you can buy fuel, self-serve, and so many of them will have. Good morning, proud pop-up. I'm out in California. I'm in Bakersfield, California, is where I am. So we'll see. That says diesel, so that's probably for trucks. He's out on the runway 30 right. That's where we landed last night. I can't seem to zoom, pinch and zoom. I'll just try to hold still. And off goes the corporate jet. So the airport's quite large. Goes down a ways. Oh, there's a terminal building down there. That's interesting. So, so big enough to have a terminal building, probably for daily, hop flights or something. I don't think that was a commercial airliner at all. I mean, charters use this kind of stuff. All right, and then the black asphalt is the airport controlled area, I guess you could say it is. And so while I'm on black asphalt, I'm having to talk to Tyler. Not that they're always color-coded. And some building here. But yeah, this is kind of cool. I guess they brought it in from training, or I can't imagine it's for salvage. Why bring it out here? Maybe just to show off. It's kind of, hey, look cool. We got a little, maybe CRJ. I didn't see if there was any numbers on it. From Canada. So CRJ, Canada flies a lot of CRJs, so that makes, and it's kind of small. It looks like it's a 2x2 configuration. There's a bulkhead. No, it's got a row of 3 seats. So wow, three on one side, 2 on the other. It looks like that's what the configuration is. We'll see if there's any other markings on it. I guess you can see the foam. They spray in between, get some insulation to the outside. Now, my last trip to California, oh, they just chained it down. And to California airports was that there's kind of a schism of people who are on them. People who hate other people and don't associate with them. And so, if somebody comes out shaking their fist at me and yelling at me, I won't be surprised. When I was at the airport, I picked up Audrey 2 in Northern California, and I spent a few days up there getting trained on how to fly her, how to land her primarily. And in that time, I made friends with several people at the airport, but the people I made friends with didn't associate with the other people I made friends with. There was definitely schisms going on. Some slight that somebody did 20 years ago and you're not forgiving them over. Little P-51. I have a biplane. I don't know if this would fit in my airplane, but I have a biplane in my front yard. So many of the homes in my neighborhood have airplane or country motifs, little statues and stuff out of them. And then I have a bunch of owls around my house So I need to paint mine. Mine's all the paint's gone. It's just gray. So that's a pretty well done owl. Don't want to trip over anything. Wookie Bookie 4. So one hangar there, and then hangar number 1, and then we're staying hangar number 2. So we flew at night through these mountains. We did go ahead and climb up. Dan was a little bit concerned. You could kind of see the sky wasn't pitch black, and so you could kind of see outlines of mountains at time. And then a lot of times you saw like lights on the ground, and then you saw areas that there was no lights, and you knew, I bet you there's a mountain right there, So here's Audrey too, that winged us here, and she is cleaned and waxed. I'll give you a little quick tour. I have a beauty panel that goes on here, but I took it off because it cracks every time it gets hit. And I'm thinking it's got too much Velcro, and when you peel the panel off, it starts cracking. It's 47 years old, or 48. The plane's 48 years old now. Got some tools to work on the new airplane. Got a spare tire for this airplane. If I get a flat, I have a tube and tire with me. Some cases of oil. And hey, good morning, Grego. Oil and cleaning supplies, which we'll use. I got a little collapsible ladder. This is a 6-foot ladder, and it collapses down into 2 feet and weighs 26 pounds. And I got the aircraft plugs. Those plug all the holes to keep birds and insects from getting in and building nests, which is what we got over the pitot tube. There's my camera mount. I did have the camera rolling, so I'm going to pull some footage. One thing about this wing is you can see there's a curvature. Most wings, it's hard to show an area on this one. I guess show this. So most wings just have they're an airfoil, kind of like that, but it's just an airfoil, and it's smooth. And this plane's been upgraded. It's called a stole kit, and they've come in here and they've riveted this piece of metal. The original wing front stops right about here. And what they've done is they've riveted an extra leading edge of about an inch onto this wing. So giving it an extra inch allows you to fly slower. Now, normally what happens is that also slows the airplane down. But what they've done is you can see that extra inch is angling down really fast. So when you're flying fast, this extra inch is not seen by as much by the wind. The wind is separating over it, but it's not connecting just to the center of it. And then, so what happens is it doesn't penalize you as much on the high end. You might lose like 2 miles, 3 miles an hour on the high end, but on the low end, you can fly in at about 10 miles an hour slower without the plane stalling. And then this little droop, it's called a droop leading edge, reduces that the high speed effect. But at low speed, you can see that as the plane pitches up, that this wing is now more angled into the wind. So as the wind separates, it's separating here, and you're getting lower speeds. So that is one thing that's done. The wingtip was extended about 2 inches and then given a droop. There's controversy on whether these droops do anything or not. And then the other thing that was added is what's called a stall fence. So as you near a stall, the air over here starts getting really turbulent, and you start losing lift on this area of the wing, and it travels this way. And this stall fence helps realign the wind along the wing. And so this area, the outer area of the wing, is kind of protected from the separation that's happening over here. And so what happens is your ailerons are over here, and so your ailerons are able to go up and down still and get some have effect. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So the stall fence helps to, as this air over here is really turbulent, it helps to kind of get some realignment right in this area so that the ailerons out here the air is still flowing at a lower airspeed. Now you'll start seeing these stall fences on lots and lots of aircraft. They become really common as that was kind of proven out. There is, again, probably about a quarter of a mile an hour of a speed penalty for having one. But the effect is that as you get into lower speeds and you start to get into a spin, that your ailerons still have authority to get you out of it. It's a retractable gear airplane. These doors open, the gear folds up backwards, and then the doors close. So when the gear's up, she's really nice and aerodynamic. And I hate to look at the bottom or look at the bugs on the front. I did a lot of cleaning on her, but we just flew 12 hours, 10 hours or something. I have to go look at my logbooks. So we're going to be here. So today, the plane that we're buying is in one of these other hangars. It's not here. We're staying in an apartment. So the upstairs is kind of like an apartment, and that's where we're staying. And here comes the police taking a look at me. And or maybe he's just doing a property search. I didn't want to shoot him because he might definitely turn around and come take a look at me. But so upstairs in this hangar, at least, is apartments, and most of them, some airports, people build these hangars and then they build a home up inside of it, and they live with their airplanes. What the owner of this one did is allowed us to stay in the apartment that's upstairs. So Dan is still upstairs in the warmth. It's probably 33 degrees here right now. It's pretty cold, but there's no wind, and you can see she's wet. So I'm just going to let the sun bake it off, and then I'll come back and clean her. The wicks take static electricity, and they wick out and they start burning this carbon. These have been recarboned. There's a little bit missing there, so probably a little bit of static has already burned off some. What that does is keeps your radio from having that staticky sound sometimes. All right. We'll give you a tour of the inside. Now, don't shoot the police. Minus 13. Oh, that's too cold, my friend. That's just too cold. So, one of the things about the 210, this is a 6-passenger airplane. And so, with 4 people not behind, now the center of lift is right along here. It's actually, center of lift is right in here. And this is a big airplane. And so as you start to put 4 people back here and luggage, the tail gets heavy. So the wing position is set so it's very nose heavy. So if I had literally from these front row of seats to the back of the tail, I had no luggage, had no people, I had no ladder, no oil, no nothing, I would actually be nose heavy. I would be out of CG just slightly forward. So if I take 10 pounds of oil or 30 pounds of oil and ladders and stuff and I put it back here, there's no way I can get out. Even if I put 200-300 pound people in the front seat, the CG, the center of gravity for the airplane, will be at its far forward limit. Anything else I do, people or anything else, moves the CG backwards. And so this plane is really easy to, I don't have to ask people their weight. I've got the third row is folded down for more baggage area. Don't know if that's going to show, but so I actually have more, the seat rope back for the third row is folded down, and it makes a lot more cargo area. All right. So we'll go ahead and power stuff up. So I got 2 Garmin G5s. I've got a JPI 730 engine monitor, the new 750 XI. So we'll tell this that we're not refueling. And then the databases are all current until January 24th. And it's driving this guy. It's telling me it's driving this guy, and I'm supposed to look and make sure that it's pointed the right direction and it's off, and that is correct. And then I've got the map. The other one's still booting, all right. Databases, checks, and then he'll come up. Now they're both looking for GPSs. So I've got a audio panel. The audio panel lets me select the audio source, either Navcom 1, Navcom 2, Navcom 3, which I don't have at the moment, and then other instruments like COM 1, COM 2, COM 3, COM 1, COM 2, COM 3, Nav 1, Nav 2, DME, and ADF. Then I can split, and I can choose other stuff. It's really a nice audio panel. The new one dropped. Good morning, Destructive Dan. Oh yeah, I do. I actually plug it into my tablet. It has all the weight and balance on the aircraft. And I can show you that sometime. This is the GNC 500. It's a Garmin 500 autopilot. Now the way this works is, this is a Garmin 750 XI. This has a GPS, plus it has an old style radio receiver. So from all of the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, all of the radio navigation that was done in those ages is in both of these instruments, or these GPS receivers. So these GPS receivers receive the old style information, so I can do like a VOR approach, I can do an ILS approach, I can do a localizer approach, those kind of things. I get my marker beacon information and so on. But I also have full GPS, and I have the ground-based GPS things that, the correctors. So even if all the satellites go away, there's actually ground-based GPS rebroadcasters at broadcast adjustment data. And so with that, that's actually considered a second source. So normally I've got GPS satellites as well as ground-based towers on correcting the GPS data, giving you a higher accuracy that both of these receive. Now once you put your flight plan in, it sends the data. Both of these guys send data over to the G5s. This is what you fly by. So your artificial horizon, your speed tape, your altitude tape, your ground speed, your barometric pressure setting, and it has a battery, and it also has a set of instruments, sensors in it. So if everything else lost power, if the whole aircraft lost power, and these guys have 4-hour batteries in them, I continue to get basic navigation, flying stuff for 4 hours. So you can see the bank angle, the bowl, right there's the bowl to show if I'm slipping to the left or slipping to the right. So this pad is probably not quite level. My current altitude, which if the barometric pressure is wrong, it won't be right. And then here's navigation data. This is for like the GPS sends me how to fly to the, like I can go look over here and see where to fly, but it forwards that data over here, and this puts needles up that tells me which direction things are. If I switch to the old style VORs, then this will turn cyan. So pink or magenta is GPS data, and the cyan is the old style VOR data. And so it overlays both sets of data from whatever I selected. So I select on GPS 1, or on the Navigator 1, and I select on Navigator 2, and both of them are represented on this one instrument. Whichever one I select drives the autopilot. So let's say I put in an approach into the 750. I put in an approach in for runway 30 left. I can actually go to the other one and put in a instrument approach into 30 right. He said, so the ATC says, expect the 30 left approach. So I'm flying the approach based on what I've loaded into him. I'm having him drive the G5. The G5s are telling me how to navigate to that source, and that data is going down to the autopilot to tell the autopilot how to fly for me if I want it to do it instead. The fastest I've seen on the speed tape is 250 or something. Oops. And then you got my reference speeds. But let's say that I'm flying the approach, and as I fly the approach, the controller says Cessna or Centurion 732 Echo Lima, shift to 30 right. Well, instead of reloading the entire approach in here, if I've already got the approach loaded in that one, I just simply come over here and hit the button, and I switch over to the source where it says GPS 1. I switch it to GPS 2, and all of a sudden, this guy's data is now the source for these guys. These guys are driving the autopilot, and the autopilot will turn and start making the approach for the other runway. On my engine monitor, you can see that we've used 25.9 gallons of fuel. I got 62.1 gallons of fuel left. The current outside temperature is 6 degrees C. Wow, doesn't feel that warm. It's got each of the 6 cylinders temperature and their exhaust temperature, and then the turbo has its temperature. My current voltage, manifold pressure, and the RPMs. So that is the audio panel, and then way over there is the transponder. The transponder has ADSB out. So when the radar swings around at the airports that have the spinning radar, when the radar comes around and hits my aircraft, this thing since there's a reflective bounce off the metal of my aircraft, and that information goes into an old style receiver. But at the moment my aircraft senses that it's been pinged by this radar, it transmits a burst of data because it knows that the antenna is facing the aircraft at that moment, because the receiving antenna spins around slightly behind. Like if you ever look at these radars, you'll see there's a big dish, or there's a small dish, and there's a big dish. The small dish is transmitting data, transmitting energy out into the atmosphere. And then here comes another cop. Or no, he's leaving. Huh. He's just going somewhere. He was over there. So as that big dish transmits a huge amount of energy, and the small dish is slightly behind. So as it catches up, reflections come in, and the reflections from the radar come in, but also there's another antenna with that panel that receives on 2 different frequencies. Somebody can probably post what they are. They're like 1030 megahertz and 945 or something. So there's 2 other antennas, and this one transmits a burst of data at that moment. When it senses that it's been painted, it then transmits a burst of data. And that burst of data, it transmits that transponder code. It transmits my altitude, so my pressure altitude is being sent over to this guy so that he can transmit the pressure altitude. It's transmitting his serial number of that unit, and it's transmitting my tail number. It also transmits, in some cases, speed data and other data. So when that block of data, when that data comes in, instead of them having to guess what I'm doing, they get more precise information. And that information can be found on watching like FlightAware. Now, it's kind of mandated that almost all aircraft, certainly all aircraft operating in certain airport areas, have to have the transmitter. But this is also a receiver. So when other aircraft transmit that block of data back to ATC, this one picks up that block of data and it sends that block of data to my iPad. It sends the block of data to both of these GPS navigators. So this will show traffic. Both of these will show traffic, and my iPad will show traffic around me. And if I touch that traffic, it will tell me how fast they're going, what altitude they're at, if they're climbing or descending, what type of aircraft it is. There's a lot of data that I can get from that information. So that's all the stuff. Now the old stuff is, I have my old speedometer. I have my old altimeter. I have my vertical speed indicator, which is on the far right side here. Of course, the altitude is here and the speed is there. I have my slip and ball indicator, which is of course on here, the angle at the top and the ball at the bottom. Then over here I have my manifold pressure and fuel flow, which is manifold pressure and fuel flow. I have my RPMs, which I have my RPMs, and then I have a backup altimeter, which obviously none of these round gauges are required anymore. Wow, that guy was already off the ground. So this airport has a really long displaced threshold, which means as you're landing, you can't land. The runway goes way down there. You can't land until right up in here is where the landing point is, right about there. You see by hand. But so there's like 1,000 feet or 2,000 or 3,000 feet of unusable runway. But when you're taking off, you can take off from way back there. Now I think in some cases the displaced threshold is because that area of the runway can't take landing weight, but almost always it's because of homes at the end of the runway. By displacing the threshold, you're moving the landing angle down so that those planes are higher up over those homes instead of over here. And then if they hit reversers, that it's not as loud because they're further away. Oh, and I left this thing running, and we'll run the battery down. I did not bring the battery minder with me, so we'll go ahead and turn off that and turn off that. Of course, lots of circuit breakers. Circuit breakers for all the old stuff, and then pull style circuit breakers for all of the avionics. So everything that you can't pull the circuit breaker, you can see some of the breakers have knobs. You can pull them out and you can actually trip them and kill that device. Everything that has a push button and not a pull is supposed to be stuff you can turn off. And everything that you can pull is stuff that you might not have an on-off switch for. So all the lighting has just regular buttons. Eventually I'm going to replace all these circuit breakers with pull style. I have my flaps there. The gear handle is there. The gear light positions. The vertical trim tab, I have electronic trim. And then the rudder trim. The fuel tank selector, I have a left and a right. And then the breaker for the fuel pump, or the gear pump. And the cowl flaps. And then the black knob is my throttle. I always fly with the throttle all the way open. Blue knob is to set the prop pitch, and that actually decreases RPMs as you bite more air. And then the mixture is to set the fuel air mixture, and I lean it out once we take off. And then I've got some cabin heat, some fresh air, and the defroster. The ELT is way over there above the glove box. You just barely see it through the yoke. So there's an emergency locator transmitter in the back of the aircraft. That's how I manually test it. This had like a Garmin Arrow in it at one time, and that's the mount point and all the cables that plug into it. And there's satellite XM receiver. And so if I paid for the service, I could get music and weather on board. So that's the inside. I just replaced the vertical card compass. The old floating style was bad. And outside air temperature, which I don't use anymore because I've got a probe out here. So that probe is the new outside air temperature probe. Got overhead air vents. So there's this kind of ram air in the front of the wing. So the air coming into this has two hoses. One hose just goes to the pilot, and the other hose goes to the 2 rows of seats. Same thing for the other side. So I have a hose for myself coming here because they know the pilot sweats the most. And then the passengers have overhead air, forced air, which they should all be closed. And then, so there's lots of passenger comfort. There's the air here and the air here, and those are closed, and I think those are closed, yeah. And then these old flip-up things here, flip down, that's the oxygen. So I have an oxygen tank, so right here in this bulge, this headliner bulge, there's 4 scuba tanks in there basically. 2 on each side of the main wing spar, and there's 4 oxygen tanks up there. I have an on-off handle, and then I have how much oxygen's left. You can see I'm a little bit low. I probably got about an hour more of flying time for the oxygen. And then, so I have oxygen mask. It's a BNC type connector. I stick in there and plug in. And we keep oxygen. Oops. Yeah. So in my center console, we keep our oxygen. So there's one for me and Dan and my wife. That's only 3. I've got like 4 instrument or oxygen things. I got hydraulic fuel for the gear system and for the brakes. I always keep inside. Some water bottles, emergency oxygen, foggles, tools, pins, other stuff. Our jackets, I usually have a headset for guests. So I got a headset there, and there's a headset under here. So what we're doing in California is we're going to examine a new plane. It's a seaplane, or technically it's an amphibian aircraft meant to land on water or land. And I expect we're going to buy it. We're not going to find anything wrong and not buy it. So we brought tools to kind of take it apart, examine. I brought some cleaning supplies, some oil. This aircraft uses about it leaks, and there's some conditions that cause it to leak, but under normal operating conditions, it burns and leaks about 1 quart of oil every 6 to 8 hours. Now, the thing is, there is like in the back, there's a big crankshaft, or the crankshaft feeds into a big gear, and the gear turns the accessories. And so when you tilt the aircraft really high up, that engine oil runs to the back, hits those gears, and it starts foaming up. And when it foams up, it goes out the breather tube, and when it goes out the breather tube, I get oil on the bottom of my aircraft. So this oil is from a leak. It's not a lot of oil, but it's annoying. That's about 10 hours of flying. And then under the airplane is where I get my breather oil, which is not too bad right now. So what we've started doing is we've started doing shallower climbs, so we're not pitching the nose up as much, and as a result, that it doesn't lose oil. We stopped doing these extreme, like 1,200 feet a minute climbs, and started doing like 500 feet a minute climbs, 600 feet a minute, and we dropped 1 quart of oil every 4 hours just doing that. So we realized we were foaming. I don't have some aircraft have an air oil separator that reclaims that oil, and I don't have that. Might be worthwhile putting in. Have the aircraft plugs, but you can see the luggage area. This is the seat back for the 3rd row, and it folds against this little area. And then we got the tail. So that's a tour of the aircraft. We'll go take another look. I got my keys with me. I got the brake off in case we need to move it, in case they can't open that door. I'm surprised nobody's here yet, but it is a Martin Luther Day, I guess. Well, when we were in Las Cruces, it blew out of the plane. So I got to get another, I may be buying another Gatorade this week to drink and have another relief bottle. So now that the cop is left, I thought maybe I'd walk down here and look at these guys. That looks like it's a 210 and a 172. To me, the 210 is probably one of the best mission-capable aircraft for carrying 4 people. It's a 6-passenger airplane, and as a 6-passenger airplane, it can carry 4 real humans, full fuel, and some luggage, and go places. And so it's very aerodynamic. It's a really fast flying airplane. This one looks like it's got a wheel skirt on the front, which is weird. Could be a Cardinal. It's probably a Cardinal. Yeah, it's a Cardinal. So the Cardinal, it was Cessna's attempt of making, the 172 is a trainer. And the Cardinal was to be like a plane that you would promote up to after you learn how to fly, which would take you and your family all over the country. It's almost a true 4-place in that you can put 4 people, not heavy set American people, but 4 people, full fuel, and some baggage. They took the wing, the older wing from the 210. You can see that the wing is not horizontal. There's an angle to it, what's called a dihedral. So it comes down and then goes back up. And on mine, I'll show you the dihedral. This is like a 4 or 5 degree dihedral, and mine's like 2 degrees. So there's a higher dihedral, but this is the wing from the 210, an earlier 210, mated up with a stretched body 172 with, so it's more comfortable. There's insulation, so it's quieter. This is in the days where everybody didn't have headsets, and it's got it's got a big 4 or a small 6. I think it's the small 6 is what's in here. The Cardinal came in fixed gear, as you can see this one is, and it came in a retractable gear. Now in the retractable gear version, the back gear work exactly like mine. They fold backwards up into the fuselage. The nose gear goes backwards. Mine goes forward. And as a result, the gear door is mounted to the front of the wheel, and it acts like a speed brake. Cardinals, when they're putting their gear down, are really in bad shape. You can see this is what that wing should look like. This is a 210 wing, and you see there's no drooped cuff. It's just, that is the airfoil. And this is the standard Cessna wingtip. So that's the wingtip that my airplane should have. This is almost exactly the wing my airplane has. Well, it is the wing my airplane has. Wow. Those are stickers. Wow. You can see it has a really long flaps. But on my 210, the flaps are shorter and the ailerons are longer. They traded off the flaps and the ailerons. But that, oh, the other thing is the tail. This entire tail pivots. And then what you want to see on a Cardinal is you want to see these. So these are like slats. You know, on big airliners, they have that leading edge of the wing that moves out. Oops. They have the leading edge of the wing that moves out and gives you a little bit of an airfoil, but gives you a place for the air to spill and a second airfoil. On the early Cardinals, so this is a B model. The early Cardinals they didn't have enough elevator authority. So you could get into a stall spin too easy. So eventually Cessna added these slats, and that completely solved the problem. It's a very docile stall entry and spin entry, and easy to recover from now. Now, the thing that helped the 210 was more ailerons. So this was the lessons learned from the 177, that on the later 210 wing, they gave it bigger ailerons. So I'll show you that in mine. You can see the dihedral, and the dihedral on this one is closer to mine because it's just the previous wing. And then this is the 172. So this is the trainer, and it's hard to believe, but that fuselage, that whole plane's length is almost identical to this one. What they did is where the passenger compartment starts sloping down, they just moved it back. So here we'll look at the wing connection, and you'll see it should look, depending on the year of Skylane, it should look identical. Okay, so you can see that little bulge between the tail of the wing. That one is almost identical. So these years are very close to each other. Within 2 years of each other, is my guess. Oh, there's a tail number. Y'all can actually look them up. And there's those static wicks. That one's gone. So these are great trainers. They're very docile. They have very mild stall characteristics. When the wing stops flying, it gives you a lot of notice. Hey, I'm about to fall out of the air. You can recover quickly because of it. Or you prevent from getting into a spin because of that. And then if you get into a spin, it's kind of easy to get out of. So I've got a T210L. Mine's a 76. Yeah, and mine can handle something like it's really it's something like a 26 knot crosswind or something. So this trim tab, because this is the entire tail is a flying tail, the trim tab, you can see how they did that arrangement. So 172, 177. And the first time I flew a 177, now remember this is the day before headsets, so we're using the overhead speaker and the microphone, little hand mic that comes with these aircraft. That's what we're using to talk to people. Much, much quieter. This was a very quiet plane, not much vibration. There's a point on the flight that the 3 people with me, my wife and our 2 friends, fell asleep. So if I was going to buy a 2-passenger plane, 3-passenger plane, a fixed gear 177, in fact, that plane, I don't know what the status is on this plane, but it would be that year model, that model, the B model, the 177B. And if you get the fixed gear version, you don't have to worry about any of the gear retraction stuff, and you don't have to pay all the insurance. And there's the radar. So anytime you look at those radar dishes, you'll usually see the big one, and then you'll see a little one. The little one's the transmitter, and the big one's the receiver. So you can see as we get close to my plane, it's almost imperceptible dihedral. The only way that you can tell the wing really has a dihedral, stand at the end of it and see that the middle is lower than the other wingtip. I'm still surprised nobody has shown up. The guy that does maintenance in this hangar is supposed to show up and show us where the other plane is. So I will be doing, I have to go charge my phone up. I'll be doing some more shooting of the other plane as we start to examine it. It's an amphibian. I think that was just a truck. Really loud truck. We're in Bakersfield, California. So you can see my wing. This was the last wing that Cessna made for the 210. And I can't remember what it is, but it's like, it may be under 2 degrees dihedral. Now what that does is, Dihedral makes your plane much more stable, but it makes it slower. Yeah, Meadows Field. That's where I am. I have a camera mount on the inside for a GoPro. I have a 360, what is it? The Insta360 on the outside. I need to get some more camera mounts. The tail's kind of hard to do because of oil getting up on it. But let's see, I think we've kind of solved that problem. Yeah, bottom's clean. I cleaned her real good before we started this trip, so I could see if we've taken care of some of these problems. But yeah, you'll see the dihedral's less. And then what they did is, remember on the other one, it kind of had that little bulge here. This one, the wings are, it bulges higher and comes back further. And you can put 6 foot plus people in this. There's a video out of a guy flying, he's over 6 feet, and he's flying 5 of his 6 foot plus friends to another state for a Topgolf event. Half the video's on the flying and half of it's on the Topgolf. Air inlet for the pilot side foot, and air inlet on the other side for the co-pilot. This is where the air comes in for the heater to heat the inside of the aircraft. Of course, cooling air for the engine, cooling air for the engine, and then that's the actual oil cooler. So the oil pumps in here, and as a result, cylinder number 5 is kind of hidden, and it's the hottest cylinder. And I still got some wax here I got to get off. I'll go get a towel and wipe that off. This is the air inlet for the turbo, and then this is the air inlet for the intercooler. So I have an intercooler on my turbo. And then air inlet for the co-pilot's feet, fresh air, and then these little triangular scoops on both sides are for the instrument panel. So the instruments generate a lot of heat, and so this ram air goes into the instrument panel, and hot air comes out a hole in the top, so the air goes vertical through there. So you can kind of see the difference. So this is the original wing, and this is the drooped leading edge, and this is a cover that covers the fact that this is bigger. So I don't know if you can see the perspective, but I think you can. How much more edge right in this angle? It adds maybe a little over half an inch in here. And then that original leading edge is in here. They didn't take that metal off. They just added this metal over it to give me that droop leading edge. And then they added longer wingtip. Now I've got new wingtips that have a landing light here. So I'll have a project in the future to add those. And recently we added the LED lights. These LED lights were not for this wingtip. And so this is actually a 2-part rubber molds I made, which I tried to paint and they just won't hold the paint. So eventually those will go away. I needed something to fill in. You can see how much gap, because that light wasn't meant for this wingtip. There's my stall horn. So when the wind starts blowing backwards, because it's coming around and I'm about to stall, it pushes it up and a horn goes off inside. If I don't have the gear down, like the gear's up in the belly, and I pull the throttle, I'll get a horn telling me my gear's up. Different sound, and really loud and annoying. And then I have lights. They're passenger entry lights. I don't know if that's showing. Yeah, there they are. So these lights just kind of light on the outside of both areas for passengers to get in and out. And then I have the refuel for the oxygen is out here. So open this up and there's a place to hook the oxygen pipe. So I'll probably show that on a future video. Actually, I take a look. These ailerons are, wow, these ailerons might not be any longer. Massive flaps. ELT antenna. That's the old marker beacon antennas for ILS approaches. I've got 2 comm antennas on the top for my 2 radios. And then I've got 2 GPS up there, the GPS receive antennas, and then I got a variety of antennas on the bottom, of most of them which I think aren't needed anymore. And most of them may be coming off. Anyway, there she is. I'll make sure my shoes don't have any of those stickers on them, and I'm going to go see what Dan's up to. I was expecting some traffic this morning. There's been 3 planes take off that I've heard. All right. I'm not sure how much the oxygen bottles weigh. I know guys who have taken them out and then they just carry, instead of having them built in, they just carry a medical oxygen tank with them when they go on flights. One of those tanks will last 4 people like 4 hours. And so, especially if you have, there's these little things that when you breathe in, it turns on the oxygen, and when you stop breathing in, it turns it off. And those things have been said to stretch your oxygen 4x longer as well. So some people have removed the oxygen tanks. If I had got the aircraft, I was looking for one with it, and then after I got it, I realized I didn't really need them. I could have just got a portable bottle. So, but there are people who have removed them. All right. Stop. Look for aircraft. I'm going to go recharge my phone now. I'll try to do some streaming when we go look at the airplanes. With the airplane. It's if you want to look it up, it's a Sea-Ray, S-E-A-R-E-Y Classic. It's a Sea-Ray Classic. And we've got it under contract. All we're here this morning to do is go through it. And then starting tomorrow, we'll get training on it, how to fly it. So how to fly it as a tail dragger, and how to fly it as a seaplane, and how to fly it with this multi-engine. It actually has 2 engines on it. Usually they only have one, and we'll probably unbolt the one. It has one on the front of the wing, one behind the wing, so it's inline thrust. So when you lose an engine, you don't even know it, unless you lose a big one. One in front's really tiny. So we'll end up unbolting the one in front most of the time. So yeah, she's wet. It was really cold here. It was like 32 overnight. I think the rest of this week is only supposed to get down to like 37 as the coldest, and then into the 40s. And you can see my trim tab is set for takeoff. So, all right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me for a while. I'll post the video I took of, and I haven't named the Sea-Ray. I don't think so. My wife's the one who mentioned this one. So this one's called Audrey 2. If you've seen Little Shop of Horrors, when I first got her, she was just sucking down fuel, and I was like, "Feed me, Seymour, feed me. I'm so hungry." And my wife says it's Audrey 2. And we actually have a little figurine that goes on the instrument panel I need to put back into her. The Sea-Ray, I can't remember if she suggested a name or not. So, all right, gentlemen. Look for any more streams. That probably won't be as long as this one because I need to conserve my battery life throughout the day. Have a good day, and thanks for hanging out, guys. Cheers.